This is Line Talkers Podcast, Episode 7. You totally forgot about this. Welcome to Line Talkers Podcast. This is Kenny Adams, and I am the host. So 7 months ago, we rolled out the podcast with Episode 1, and at that same time, there was a tropical storm that had formed in the Western Atlantic, Eastern Caribbean. Tropical Storm Dorian was just off the Lesser Antilles coast. About 3 days later, that same storm became the strongest hurricane to ever hit the Bahamas, packing winds of 185 miles an hour, totally destroying the infrastructure there and leaving about 70,000 people homeless. They don't even know how many fatalities there were. About a month later, I was able to reach out to a lineman who works for the utility in the Bahamas. He was gracious enough to talk to me on 2 different occasions and go over the work that he had going on there in the Bahamas and the storm restoration. As of this recording, they're still working. That was 7 months ago. This podcast is divided up into 2 parts. The first part was when I sat down with him in October, and the second part was just a few weeks ago. Hope you enjoy. Shout out to Donavan Whyms for taking the time to sit down with me. I really apologize for taking so long to get this put together. Thanks a lot to Donavan. Hope you're doing well. To get a hold of contact that I had made in the Bahamas, Donavan Whyms, and he's a lineman there in the Bahamas. And hey, man, I know you've been working a lot. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. We have a lot of work ahead of us. We have approximately close to 3,000 poles down on the Great Island of Abaco alone. So it's going to be a lot of work to get done.
First of all, I'm 3,000 poles on that size landmass is just unbelievable. Before we get in, I just got to ask you, are there any poles still standing?
Yeah, we have a few still standing. It was, as you're aware, we were working in the southern area of the island. It was the least affected area. That's about anywhere between 60 to 70 miles. The island is really long. It'll take you approximately maybe 2.5 to 3 hours to drive the entire island. And the area we were working on was South Feeder. It was approximately about 60 to 70 miles long. And within that stretch alone, which was the least affected, we had approximately 60 poles down. So that was the area that we were working when we got back, because it was the least affected.
All right. So before we go into that, a little bit about yourself. You raised in the Bahamas, grew up there?
Yeah, I was 100% Bahamian, born 1989, January 12th, Nassau, Bahamas. I have been living here my whole life. I'm 30 years old now. I've been working for Bahamas Power like pretty much straight out of high school. So since I was 19, so next month on November 3rd would make 11 years I've been doing line work.
Yeah, the other thing too is you were born 2 years after I graduated high school, so you're going to turn around twice one of these days and you're going to be the old guy in the room like I am now. So just so you know, enjoy it.
Speaking, since we're on age right now, it's funny because I'm the youngest on the team who's working in Abaco right now. I'm the youngest.
You mentioned earlier when we talked that you travel a lot. You been to the United States much?
Yeah, been to Florida, obviously, it's right next door. Been to Nevada, Colorado. So I did some hotline training down in my hotline school at Grand Junction, Pennsylvania.
What's your favorite part so far of the United States? What do you like the best?
I'm a big fan of the food.
Yeah.
Yeah. My wife will tell you that whenever we go, I have to go to Denny's at least once.
To Denny's?
Yeah. Yeah, to Denny's at least once. So it's pretty much a weakness. I can't drive past the Denny's without stopping and getting breakfast.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I guess we Americans, we take for granted a lot of things that other folks in other places, especially, and I'm going to call it Bahamas, remote, what you guys don't get to enjoy, I guess. So what about Waffle?
Waffle House. I love Waffle House as well.
Yeah.
But you guys do a lot of manufacturing and everything, so most of the stuff we get come from you guys, and that's how it is.
So what island do you live on now? I think you told me before that wasn't affected, but where do you live now?
Right now, I live on Long Island. It approximately, anyway, we have about 95 miles to maybe to 100 miles of road, actual road, but the island's a bit longer, but you only could drive in that area. It's not the longest island in the country. To this day, I have no idea why they call it Long Island. Like I mentioned earlier, Abaco is much longer. Eleuthera is longer. So, but to answer your question, I live on Long Island. We have about anywhere between 200 to 250 miles of line to maintain, myself and two other guys. So it's mainly just three of us there. We maintain about 250 miles of line.
To us, that sounds like a dream job, but
Yeah,
maybe
but honestly, it isn't. It isn't because you're always on 24/7 call. So
right,
whenever
right.
something happens, it could be anything from a small service call to anything as someone running into a pole.
Yeah, so living on an island like that, do you sometimes feel like maybe you're in a fishbowl?
Yeah, because we probably have about a little over 2,000 people on the island, and everyone knows everyone. You see the same faces every day. You have a limited amount of resources. Only certain things. We have groceries and everything come on the mailboat weekly, so it's a very limited. Because we live on the island, we have a lot of people who come from the U.S. and from Canada who enjoy it because it's so much different than the busy city that they're used to. So when they come down, they just love it.
Yeah, I bet. I fully expect an invite at some point when you get everything settled. That's the one thing I like
Okay.
about living in Orlando is I know absolutely no one. I can go anywhere and never run into anyone that I know. And
Yeah,
there's a
and
lot of
that
that's awesome. All right, so let's talk about the hurricane a little bit. I know as it approaches Florida, I know how nervous everybody gets here. Talk about the bottled water thing. We talk about battening down the hatches, the plywood, the everything. So were
okay.
you a little nervous where you were?
Usually because of where the Bahamas is located, we are pretty much used to having hurricanes because they always come off the African coast and they come down, or they come along the area of Cuba or Haiti or the Dominican Republic area, and then usually they make their way towards the Bahamas. That's like last year we were spared, but in my 10 years and 11 months alone, this will be my sixth restoration I've worked. So I've worked six hurricanes in the past pretty much 10 years. So every other year I haven't having a storm, but we are pretty much used to it. But honestly, there was really nothing you could do but towards Hurricane Dorian. The only thing you really could have done was leave wherever you were living, whichever direction it was coming to. Best thing you could have done was leave, but no one foresaw what Dorian was going to become. Not the meteorologist, nobody saw it. It was the same thing with I don't know if you remember Hurricane Joaquin.
I don't
You
remember. I think I remember that one
Joaquin was
passing through.
Joaquin was in 2015. It was almost the same scenario, and that one actually hit the island that I live on, Long Island, and we worked for 9 weeks straight to get the supply back on. Because, like I said, it's a small operation, and we have limited resources, limited equipment, limited everything. We had to get help from. We have in the Caribbean, we have a called Carilac. It's where all the Caribbean countries they join the institution. So St. Lucia has a utility company by the name of Lucilac. So St. Lucia is a part of Carilac, as so is the Bahamas. So if a hurricane was to devastate St. Lucia, the Bahamas would send people to represent them to help restore the supply to St. Lucia because all of us are a part of the organization by the name of Carilac. We help each other in disaster. So they'd
Gotcha.
send supplies, they'd send linemen, they'd send all whatever is needed for the country, they'd send. Like, okay, I'll
Like,
give you another example. When 2 years ago, when Hurricane Irma it devastated Dominica, devastated Anguilla, all of those countries are part of Carilac. So myself and a team from Bahamas Power and Light, we went to Anguilla and we were down there for about 5 weeks doing restoration.
we have something along those lines here, mutual aid that's divided, the country's divided up into sections to where, different utilities belong to that and respond accordingly. We depend on that pretty heavily here in Florida for us to be
Right.
able to ramp up the resources. So when you guys go to another island to help or when folks come to help you there, this is just for my own benefit, I guess. You guys, do they fly you guys, or do you go by boat? I mean, it may be a dumb question, but keep in mind, I'm a
Okay.
landlubber
it's a
here, so
it's a fair question. Okay, all the islands of the Bahamas, we have flights you could use. We have a main, national flight carrier, which is called Bahamas Air. And Bahamas Air flies to we have about 13 inhabited islands. altogether it's like 700 islands. These are only 13 we mainly inhabit, right? So Bahamas Air flies to roughly like 11 of the 30. Those are the two people that have to take like private charters. Like I'll give you an example.
Gotcha.
There's an island called Rum Key. It's a very small island. They called Rum Keys, but we have about maybe 250 people that live on it. Bahamas Air doesn't fly there. So what would have to happen is residents from Rum Key would use a private charter. They would fly to the closest island to them, which is Long Island, and they would catch Bahamas Air from Long Island to the capital, which is New Providence, which a lot of people know as Nassau.
And your equipment, I guess they barge it?
Yes, sir, correct. They will put it on the barge and everything will go down. But that's only to say, okay, that's like if a storm only devastated the Bahamas or it destroyed one or two islands, like right now, like how we have Abaco and Freeport, like how those two islands were mainly affected. That's what happened. That's what happens now. Wednesday, when I go back, they would fly me back to me and the team would be flown back into Abaco via Bahamas Air because all of our equipment is still down there just waiting for us to really come back. But what we did was because there was so much devastation, as opposed to everyone on the team leaving at one time, we left half the team in Abaco so they could continue work, and the other half took a break. And now when I go back Wednesday, the other half that stayed, they'd be going back on the same plane that I come on.
So y'all are just, you got different shifts working. So how long did you work straight there before you got to come home?
Well, we did 3 weeks.
Wow.
14-hour days, yeah.
After the storm hit, when did you travel to the Abacos?
It was about, if you have been following the news after the storm hit, there was a lot of missing people. There was a lot of missing people, and there was a lot of concerns about safety. There was a lot of concerns about certain diseases, the bodies that were being found. The company really had to ensure that the workers' well-being was being taken care of before we were sent down. They had to make sure that we would have been secured when we got there, that we wouldn't have to be fearful of our lives when we get there. Maybe with hurricane, looting takes place, stuff of that manner, all kind of stuff happens when you have no order. They had no power, they had no communication, so everything was just dog eat dog. So all of that had to been worked out. I believe the storm hit September 1st or 2nd, and within roughly 2 weeks, we were on the ground. Friday the 13th, we started first work.
What a nice present on Friday 13th, huh?
Also, on a positive note, the whole time we were there, we had no negativity. All the locals were well behaved. Everything was well received. So they were just really, really happy to see us.
I appreciate you taking the time again, and I apologize for the delay in getting back to you a couple times, and you and I playing phone tag. Both of our schedules are busy. Mine, I have nothing but excuses compared to yours, but you still getting it, huh? You guys still plugging along?
Yep, I have a flight today at 2:45 to go back to work.
Are you still on the 3-week schedules, was it?
The last trip we did was 5.5 weeks.
Oh, wow. And it's 7 days a week?
Yes, sir.
And how long of a days are you guys working?
14 hours.
So when you and I talked the first time, you talked about having 3,000 poles down, and you guys were staying in people's homes and different housing because there wasn't a lot of options at the time. You guys from the utility were all that were there because you were telling me you had 3,000 poles down, not a lot of place to stay. You had some of the residents preparing food, and so what has changed since then? Have you guys got mutual aid from other areas?
Yeah, we've had assistance from the Caribbean. So far, we've had the British Virgin Islands assist us. We have had Cayman Islands. We've had Belize, Trinidad and Tobago. We've had Guyana. We'd have St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It's been quite a bit.
Any contractors there, or mostly just other utilities through mutual aid?
It's mainly utilities, and if there is any contractors, they are local contractors.
Right.
No one really from there's no contractors from outside. So all the assistance that's really have been coming is from mainly the Caribbean, like I said, the Carolec Association.
How are things on the island now? I know you and I talked. I saw a couple of your posts on LinkedIn. I read some articles online. It looked like you guys are just still plugging along one section at a time. Is
Right.
there an end in sight? Do you see the light at the end of the tunnel yet?